Hi everyone, welcome to my Persian Corner. My name is Panta and today we have a lesson on how to talk about where you're from and where you live. So let's take a look at our first question. شما اهل کجا هستی؟ شما اهل کجا هستی? Let's take this question apart. We know that we're using the formal you, شما. Is like resident, inhabitant, citizen, something like that. Koja is where, and then our verb hasti. So where are you from? We know that because of our verb ending id, this is for shoma, so we can omit shoma here, and often we do, just to ask ahle koja hasti. And of course, the difference between written and spoken Persian is that in spoken Persian, this id becomes in. So, ahle koja hastin. Another way to ask this question would be to add the ending, the verb ending, to koja, where. And then we would have ahle kojaid, kojaid, which of course in spoken Persian becomes kojain. So there's our question, where are you from? Ahle kojain. How do you answer this question? Ahle Amrika hastam. So this is something I would say, for example. Ahle Amrika hastam, or man ahle Amrika hastam. So I've omitted man here because we know that it is me because of the ending, hastam. And instead of Amrika, you could put your country, your city, your state. So for example, Ahle California hastam, Ahle Shiraz hastam, Ahle Chin hastam. Do you remember another way, a shorter way to answer this question? Instead of saying hastam, we can also say am, right? So we can omit this, just adding the ending. And we can also say Ahle Amrikam, Ahle Amrikam, Ahle New Yorkam, Ahle Almanam. Alman is Germany. That would just be adding our ending here. Okay, so let's give this one a try. I'll ask you where you're from and then you ask me back. Ahle Kojain. Man Ahle Amrikam. Great job. All right, now I'm sure that when you asked me this question back, you kept Shoma, right? Because we said that when we ask the question back, we want to keep that pronoun. It's like when in English we say, where are you from? I'm from the US. Where are you from? And we stress that you, but in Persian, we keep the pronoun in this case. Okay, so let's take a look at how this would look if we're not using shoma, but instead we're using to, our informal you. So if we want to say to, what would our question be? If you said hasti, you are correct. Ahle koja hasti. Or if we want to change this, our ending would just change to ahle kojai, right? And this would just become e. Same here. Our ending for to, e, ahle kojai. Another less formal way to ask this question would be simply to ask kojai hasti, kojai hasti. And I would answer, for example, Amrikai hastam. So here I said Amrika, which is our country. Here I said Amrikai, which is our nationality. So I could say Ahle Iran hastam or Irani hastam. So adding the E to a noun typically makes it into an adjective, or in this case, a nationality, right? So by adding this E to koja, we're essentially asking the nationality. You don't necessarily have to answer it that way, but that's what it's doing. So you could answer, من آلمانی هستم. اهل آلمانم، آلمانی هستم. اهل ژاپنم، ژاپنی هستم. So just by adding the E to the country, you get the nationality. Otherwise, I could also say آمریکایی. آمریکاییم. اهل کجایی؟ آمریکاییم. کجایی هستی؟ آمریکاییم. کاناداییم. استرالیاییم. Got it? All right. Of course, it doesn't necessarily have to be the nationality. You could also give the city, especially with Iranian cities, we do that a lot. Man Tehraniyam, Shiraziyam, Esfahaniyam, and Yazdiyam. Okay, the next thing we want to look at is how to talk about where you live. So you could ask, Koja zendegi mikoni? Koja zendegi mikoni? Where do you live? And of course, we are using our informal you. So let's look at our verb, zendegi mikoni, and let's look at the infinitive form, which is, our infinitive is zendegi kardan. And this is a compound verb in Persian. Persian has a lot of compound verbs, and by that I just mean there are two parts. So there's going to be the main part, which is telling you basically what the action is. So in this case, zendegi, which means life. And then the part that makes it into a verb. So kardan by itself can mean, do. But the first part doesn't change. It's this base part, the actual verb itself, that we're going to conjugate. And to conjugate it into the simple present, which is the form we use to talk about, facts and everyday kind of routines and things, we need three parts. We need the root of the verb, a prefix, and a suffix. The root is just something that you'll have to memorize. And in our case, for kardan, the root is going to be kun. Then we need to add the prefix. For the simple present tense that we want to talk about, the prefix is always going to be mi. And then the suffix, or the ending, basically, for the person, which is going to change. In this case, we have, for the informal you, e. Of course, if we're using the formal you, it would be id. If we were, say, for man, I, it would be mikonam, mikonam, mikonid, mikoni. For instance, man Iran zendegi mikonam, or man Shiraz zendegi mikonam. To koja zendegi mikoni? Great job. Okay, so as part of your practice, what I want you to do is, in the comments, I want you to answer 3 questions. یک اسم شما چیه؟ 2 اهل کجایین؟ 3 کجا زندگی میکنی؟ So for me, for example, I would say من پانتا هستم، اهل آمریکام، تهران زندگی میکنم. So give that a try in the comments. You can write it in Persian, or if you still don't feel comfortable, you can write it in, this English, what we call it, or you can just try it in Persian. I can always correct you. If you're not sure what your country is, just ask me. That's what I'm here for. So thank you for joining me in today's lesson, and I look forward to seeing you in future lessons. Khudafiz.